Pretty exciting here, in whether it's a train
I feel like
station
we're performing a surgery or something.
it's an after-hours agility. We're keeping things moving all the time. Now, I've still got a couple of things I need to do. Okay, I see that we've gone live. I'm just going to make sure we have all our stuff ready for you guys so that we can watch, see what's going on. I want to welcome you. In today's episode, we're going to talk about some dog agility basics, some foundation exercises, and specifically 5 skills, obedience skills, that your dog needs to know before you can really start to do any real agility training. And we're going to talk about why those why those skills are so important. That's okay, I don't need it. Thank you though. Why those skills are so important. And Kayl McCann, if you don't know who we are, my name's Ken Steepe. I'm a professional dog trainer. This is Kayl McCann, also a professional dog trainer and a 21-time world champion of dog agility. So we like to do these after-hours agility shows once a month. We'll come and hang out in our beautiful agility training facility, and we'll just come and hang out with you guys. Now, normally, if you're familiar with the train station, you kind of know how this goes. You know, we will be chatting about some whatever our lesson plan is for you, but we really do these for you guys. So if you are sitting at home and you have a question about dog agility training, or anything like that, make sure you drop it in the chat. So with no further ado, I'm gonna get us right to the bumper. And hopefully I've set everything up right, because we're scrambling to get this ready. But I want to say my name's Ken Steepe.
My name's Kayl McCann.
And welcome back to McCann Dog. So we talked a little bit about the train station, and I'd love to know from you guys in the chat if anyone's here from the train station, if you are familiar with the train station, and if you are, there's something that I always like to do. I love going live to our moderator, Dan, the moderator man. He runs the show behind the scenes. If you guys need help, Dan's there in the chat with you. You'll see him. He probably has a little blue wrench next to his name on the YouTube chat, but he's there to help you guys out, and he will sometimes let us know if there's important questions or anything that needs to be addressed. But I also love going live to him. And today's it's a little bit different. So I see if I can set this up. I'm going to do it really quickly, but I'm going to go live to Dan in his moderator mission control, so to speak. Kayl, I'm going to get you to hit that button in just a moment.
I'm ready.
When you're ready. So let's go live to Dan, the moderator man, who's actually with us. Here he is, joining us in the train, it's not the train station, in the after hours agility. And Dan actually just did you can go back to the other camera.
How do I do
That's okay, I got it. So he actually just had a class with his dog named Lucy in the agility arena here. So
he was at the fun day.
He was. We have an agility fun day. So I'd love to know where you guys are watching from. We get different audiences for our train stations and our after-hours agility. And I'd love to know if you just drop in the chat, let us know where you are watching from, because it's always really, really cool to see people from all over the world checking out the after-hours agility.
New Zealand, Aurora, Ontario, Ottawa, Canada.
Very cool. Yeah, and in a couple of minutes, we'll probably see those names rush up. And I'm really excited. We did this a little bit earlier than we normally do our shows. We didn't have Kayl, you didn't have classes up until 9:30, which we often do when we have our after-hours agility. But I'm hoping that some of our UK friends are able to join us here in the after-hours agility. I know we sort of push the limits. Sometimes it's so late for them, but they stay up to watch, and I'm so excited to see them in the train station. And here comes some of our people mentioning. I see Raleigh, North Carolina still. So there's My Show 2011. Yeah, I remember My Show 2011 from the train station. Bloomington, California, Atlanta, Georgia, Hagersville. That's not far away.
No,
Riverhead, New York.
Close.
Dunville,
Montana,
St. Mary's, Ontario.
Georgia.
Yeah.
Louisiana, California, Virginia, Arizona. Oh my gosh.
Very cool.
Everywhere.
Jay Shea says it's hot in AZ. I believe it.
Oh, yeah.
I believe it.
I do believe that.
Yeah, I know our friends from Florida are saying it's really hot, and we're actually headed out to California in a couple of weeks, and I expect it'll be pretty hot as well out there.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, for sure. I'm looking forward to it. Now,
Scotland.
Oh, very cool. Aberdeen, Scotland. Vic Duncan
Scotland.
joining us. So what we want to talk about today are some really important skills for your dog in training, your agility dog in training, for them to know, like some obedience skills. And Kayl, why don't you set this up a little bit? Why it's so important to have, some foundational skills for your agility dog?
Yeah, well, agility is definitely becoming a more popular sport, for everybody to do because it's super, super fun. Sweet, I think that's a bit too bright. But one of the things that I find, so I travel a lot around Canada, USA, Europe as well, doing agility seminars. And one of the most common things that I find in every location that I go is that a lot of people are really focused on training agility and they're not so focused on training obedience skills. They're so excited about agility, they just want to jump right into that. And then what happens is when they get to agility, sometimes they have, little, setbacks in their training because they're missing something. There's a hole there, whether it's, in their dog's recall, their dog's ability to work around distractions, the dog having, enough emotional control, those types of things. And so what we like to do here at McCann Dogs is we like to train those things first. We like to build a really solid foundation in all of the different areas of obedience. And I'm not talking like formal obedience where you would go and compete in obedience, which is great too. But I'm just talking about basic listening skills that help you to have a better agility dog, but also just a better all-round dog in general to like listen in your house. I have a lot of dogs. My dogs are highly competitive. They're very cool dogs, but at the end of the day, there are pets. There are family dogs, and they, snuggle on the couch while we watch movies, and like they need to behave. We want to take them everywhere with us. There are dogs first. So I think it's really important that the obedience skills and the basic skills that you establish first really needs to be the most important thing. So there are a ton of different things that we do with our dogs, but what I thought I would do is sort of, pull it down to 5 of, many things that we can focus on that will give you just a basic idea of things that you could start to work on. All of the things that I'm going to show you today, you can do even with a dog that doesn't do agility as well. So if you're watching today and you don't know agility, you don't do it yourself, a lot of this is just basic dog training that everybody can enjoy doing. And if you have a dog that's already in agility and maybe you're even doing well, you can even go back and do some of these things with your dogs. It's just nice to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, and with the summer approaching, for anybody in the Northern Hemisphere, I know we have lots of people that watch us from the Southern Hemisphere, and the winter is coming. I think that's the saying, at least. It's much colder there right now. But if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, the warmer weather's here, and you can do more. You can set up some stuff, and that might be something that we talk about in a future after hours agility, how to set up some agility exercises in your backyard, at your home, so that you can start to practice some of these skills. But I'd love to jump right into it. Let's talk about that first skill that every agility dog in training is going to need, Kayl. And so why don't we get right into that?
Yeah. So the first thing that I want to do is start a little bit on talking about our dog's ability to sit and wait. Now, here at McCann's, we actually teach 2 stationary behaviors. We teach a wait and we teach a stay. One's a bit more formal, one's a little bit more informal. And the word wait we use in situations where we intend to release the dog out of the position without returning back to their side, which is obviously the one that it's much more convenient for agility. So I'm not going to go back to my dog's side to release them.
Right.
So we use the word wait. The other thing we do is work on teaching our dogs to line up and get in and sit at both our left and our right sides, because as you may or may not know, agility requires you to work with your dog on both sides of your body. So everything in agility training that we do on our left, or even in the obedience training, we will also do on our right hand side, so our dog doesn't become very comfortable only on one side. They get comfortable on both. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you a couple of the different things that we do with the dogs.
For sure. And while Kayl does that, I'm going to jump into the chat and see what you guys are talking about. I see Chris Eubanks, and this is a bit of a test for me to make sure that things are set up right. Chris Eubanks, what breed are your dogs? So today we're going to be using a border collie, a young border collie dog, as well as a toy poodle in our demonstration. But we also have Labrador, border collie crosses, and a couple more border collies at home. But are we ready to head over to the other camera?
Yes, just let me know how close.
Okay, let's. Back over here for a sec. Why don't you just head back over for a moment, Kayl?
Ready.
Get that changed up.
Can they see us now? Oh,
Yep.
they can. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by showing you how I teach my dog to get in and sit at my side. I like this actually for control situations, even in just everyday life, you know, if I need a bit more control over my dogs. But for agility, it allows me to start with the dog either on my left or right and then lead out onto a course. The other really important reason why we want to teach our dogs to wait is not just to begin a course, but also this particular behavior is needed to teach contact. So at the end of the dog walk, the A-frame, the teeter-totter, if you're teaching stop contacts, the dogs have to go down and hold position until they're released. And I see a huge correlation between dogs that have start line issues also have contact issues, because it's basically the same exercise and the dog has learned the pitfalls or the mistakes in the training, and then they struggle with that. You ready, Ann?
Yeah, so let's just go. We'll just use this camera for now. We'll just move our chairs out of the way.
Okay.
I'll see if I can work on this.
Okay.
This side.
Okay. Okay. I think this is okay actually. Okay, B. So what I'm going to do to teach her to line up and sit at my left-hand side or my right-hand side is I'm going to use a bit of food in my hand, and I'm simply going to lure her into position. Now, if you have a dog that doesn't have any training, I would suggest that you do this with food or with a leash on your dog. I am failing miserably in that department. I don't have a leash or a collar on my dog, but she's well trained and she's not going to go anywhere. So I'm going to use my food to draw her into my left-hand side. I'm going to pull her right into my left using the food, and then once she's in position, I'm going to reward her at my side. And if she maintains the position, I'm going to yes and reward generously. Good girl. And then I'm going to release her, okay, and let her come out. If I want her to line up on my right-hand side, I'll essentially do exactly the same thing, but I will use, obviously, the other foot. You are very itchy right now.
The sneezing machine.
Sneezing you. So I'm going to step back on my right hand, my right foot, draw her into my side. Oh, we're spinning around. I'm going to try that again. Sit. Yes, good girl. And then I can reward several times at my right-hand side. Yes, that's a good girl. Okay, yay. Now, as you start to practice more, you can start to put it on command. So if I say B, switch, switch, switch. There we go. Switch, switch. Good girl. She'll sit at my right or, okay, get in, get in, get in, sit. I don't know why she's sneezing so much. It's very weird. Good sit. Yes. Then I can teach her to sit on both sides of my body. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is work a little bit on the wait command. Now, when I'm first starting this, I don't usually use a lot of distance. Here, B. I know. So I'm going to line her up beside me. Is this okay where I am? What I'm going to do is I'm going to ask her to wait. And when I'm first starting this, I don't leave her and walk away and hope that she, does it. I'm going to help her to be successful. So I'm going to tell her wait, and I'm simply going to pivot toe to toe in front of her. Oops. So she got up at a position, so I'm just going to place her back. Sit. Good girl. Wait. Good. Good. Wait. Yes. Now you'll notice that I didn't reward her right away. I let her settle and sit in that position for a little bit before I rewarded. Now I'm going to step back to her side just to keep her focused. Yes, good girl. And I'm going to try it again. Wait. Wait. Yes. Good. Wait. Good girl. Good. Wait. Now you're noticing I am rewarding in position far more than I'm allowing her to get at, because I want to build a lot of value for this spot. Good girl. Okay. Yay. Nice. Now I'm going to try it on my right hand side. Now she's doing it pretty successfully. Switch. So I'm going to add a bit of distance. Good girl. Wait. I'm going to step up in front of her. Yes. Good girl. Good wait. Good wait. Good girl. Wait. Yes. Good. And then I can try adding a bit of distractions. Wait. Yes. Good girl. I can come back and reward a lot. Good girl. Good wait. Ready. Set. Good girl. Yes. I'm going to say yes to pinpoint that she's correct, and then I'm going to go back to reward her. Okay. And then I can release from there. And I'm going to practice a lot of that wait and release, without any agility equipment around, because I want to make sure she's really solid with that before I add any equipment. And I can also do very similar exercises with a toy. You want to go grab a toy? Get a tug. Get me a tug. Get me a tug. Grab one. Tug, 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 tug. Yeah, okay, let's use that one. Good. Okay, so let's get rid of my food for a second. I can also practice lots of weight games using a toy. So if I have her with me here, I'm going to back up a little bit. Out. Good girl. I can tell her, get in, sit. Good, wait. Good, wait. Yes, good girl, wait. Good. Okay, yay. then when I release her, she's allowed to get the toy. Now, if I'm working on teaching her to hold position for a contact, I might add a little bit of motion in to make it even harder for her. And again, I keep switching sides. I did one on the left, now I'm going to do one on the right. Sit. Girl, wait. Wait. Yes, good girl. I might run faster. Wait. Good girl, wait. Wait. Okay, yay! And teach her to get very comfortable with the fact that I could be moving at her side, but she needs to remain stationary until I release her. So it's just little games that you can play to help build a lot of reliability in the position, and then also set the dog to be successful. And again, if your dog's making a lot of mistakes, you need to change it to make it easier. Put the leash and collar on the dog, work a little closer, reward more often, reduce the duration in which you're practicing, reduce the distance in which you're practicing to make it a little bit easier for your dog. Good girl. Out. Wait.
Okay, was there something else did you want to work on the next one? Or
no, we'll go on to the next one.
Yeah.
You can't change that so I can see because I have no idea whether I'm in the camera shot or not.
Okay, just 1 second here.
Okay, gonna move on. The next thing I'm gonna do is talk a little bit about our dog's recall. Now, teaching your dog to have a reliable recall is essential for everything in life, but I find it's really important for agility as well because there's lots of times when there's a lot of distractions, and there's some dogs that decide that they're going to pick and choose whether they're going to stay on course with their handler or not. Sometimes they do a bit and then they see a distraction and then they're gone and they'd rather do their own thing. So we need our dogs to reliably come back to us each and every time we call them. One of the things that we start off with as our dogs, even as baby puppies, is something called restraint recalls. And this is where we build a lot of value and drive for the come command. And you can do this by yourself, but it's even more fun if you do it with a partner or a person, because you can have one person hold the dog, you can have yourself tease the dog, get them really excited, take off and run, and condition your dog to come back when they're called, with the use of chase, with the use of praise, with the use of toys. Are you going to help me with that? Huh?
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind is that everybody should have a collar on their puppy. Okay, yeah, one thing that you want to keep in mind is when you're working on these exercises with your puppy or your really young dog, every dog needs a collar and a line so that you can follow up and help them be successful as you're training them.
Okay, so you can hold her here.
Right, here.
Okay, go see. So someone's going to hold on to your dog, and what I have this very exciting pink tug toy. I'm going to tease her with it. I'm going to call her, and when I say come, Ken's going to let Beeline go, and she's going to let her chase after me, and when she catches me, we're going to have a great game of tug. So it's very important that the dog hears the come command first, then your partner can let the dog go so that the dog is able to run after the toy. So I'm going to tease her with it. You ready? You want this? Ready, set, come! Yay! Good girl! And then I let her grab the toy, and then we have a ton of fun from there. Good girl. Maybe we'll do one more, and I'm going to call her to my right side. Good. Yes, get out. Go see. Good. Ready? Ready, set, come! Yeah! Good girl! Very nice. Yay! Good girlie. That one's fun. Gets you and the dog very tired. Good girl.
Great way to burn off a ton of energy.
I think that she likes this toy. Good. Okay, you want to answer some questions?
Sure, yeah. Can do that. That's a really great one for tiring your dog out, and it's actually something that we do with our younger, when our dogs are much younger. We will set them up in a hallway so that they're way more likely to be successful, so that there aren't so many distractions, and we will line them up and do that exact same restraint recall, but sometimes we'll use their name. If they're really young, we'll use their name, and then we can start to do that as a foundational step for your puppy to learn your come command. It's a great way to build value and drive for that word. Mm-hmm. Really, really helpful.
The response to name is definitely another one that I would focus a lot on. In agility, I personally use my dog's name in situations where I need like a heads up cue. So if they're, running on a sequence of obstacles and in front of them happens to be an obstacle that I do not want the dog to take, I will usually use their name to get their attention, and then I'll give them whatever cue is needed in order to tell them the proper way to go. I don't expect my dogs to come to me when they hear their name, although if they do, that's great. But I do expect them to check in with me. So after this, I can show you a couple things.
So I love this question from MyShell 2011. So how do you do this with only one person?
Forever single.
Forever single.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
So there's actually a couple
Yeah.
things that we can do.
There's,
Do we have a leash for her?
I don't have a leash now, but I can show you. The other. You can try and find a leash in there if you want. I don't have a. Come here, Bee. Okay, let me show you how you can do it by yourself. Come here. So what I can do is I can take a toy and with your hand, hold on to your dog's collar with one hand, tease them with the toy. Ready, set, come. Yay! Good girl. So I can say the word come and then I can blast away and then have a little game with her. Good girl. Go ahead and try that again. Ready, out. Ready, set, come. Yay! It's important that when you say come, that you move away from your dog to make it a lot of fun. If your dog has an understanding to sit and wait, you can also do it with a sit and a wait. It just doesn't build quite as much drive. So I could ask her to sit, wait, ready, set. This is a really good way to test her weight too because she's like jumping out of her skin right now. Ready, come. Yay! Good girl. So I can call her to come and then I can let her blast after the toy. You can do little things like that as well if your dog understands a weight. The other thing that you can do is you can attach a long line or leash to your dog's collar. And then if you have something stable that you can wrap the line or the leash around, you can wrap it around so that it sort of acts as a bit of a pulley.
Yeah, like a chair or a tree or a post or something.
Post or something that's not going to fall over when you call your dog. And then when you say come, you can let go of the line and let it sort of slip around the post, and then your dog can chase after you from there. So you absolutely can do this by yourself if you need to.
So a couple great questions.
You really like this toy, little lady. You.
Okay, let's see. Chris Eubanks asks.
Out.
How do you do recalls if the dog is not toy motivated?
Well, you could use food instead of a toy, of course, or you could work on getting your dog to be more toy motivated. We probably have quite a few videos on that. I don't really want to get into that today because that's something we could spend like an entire hour on.
Yep.
But sort of a quick answer would be think of toys that you can use that can incorporate food. So you can use, pouches or zippered toys that you can put food inside of to make the toy smell like food. Or switch up the toys that you're using. Like something like this is very fun for dogs because it's soft and easy to grab. It's sort of furry. It's got a long rope that you can wiggle the toy around and make it sort of look like dying prey. Dogs are very specific about what toys they like and what toys they don't like, so you can practice a few different variations. But I would say that one of the most important things, if you have a dog that's lacking toy drive or you want to build crazy toy drive, is don't leave your toys lying around all the time.
Yeah, give them limited access to them.
B never gets access to these types of things.
Look at how much fun it is.
I know, it's very fun. Unless we're training together. So if we're at home, she has access to chew bone. She has access to like Kongs or toys that she could lay down and chew, but she doesn't have access to like tug toys. I save tug toys for when we're retrieving and when we're training, which is a lot of the time. So she does get to play with them quite often. But what's really cool is that B associates this toy with me. And actually we can even talk a little bit about retrieving. So
yeah. Okay. So let's go there. That's good.
It's okay. We can wait.
So there's a couple things that I noticed that I think are really important that we're talking about. And part of the reason that we're working on this today, a couple of things that I saw from Melinda Miller. Says, my pup, 14 months, always gets the zoomies on her first turn in agility class or at a seminar. After that, she can focus very well. If it's an all-day seminar, it seems to be excitement-based. And that really speaks to what we're talking about when we want you to have a lot of control of your dog, off-leash control, because having those foundational skills, we're going to talk about a few more that are going to be perfect for you, but having control, having those foundational skills really instilled in your dog is going to allow you to have that great first session, that great first rep or whatever. It's also going to allow your dog to save up some energy for the second turn, and it's going to give you just a more positive experience that's much more focused on you and like actually working on the agility part rather than worrying about having to corral your dog at the end of that first turn.
Yes, we would prefer your dog not to exude their energy for something like the zoomies and running around. We would prefer for them to bottle that up and keep it controlled and then bring it out in their agility run. So when your dog does that, you really want to work on your ability to tell your dog to settle or the response to their name or a recall so that you can call them back and stop them from doing that, refocus them on their job, and then go from there. What you don't want to do is just allow it to happen, because it's a very, very self-rewarding behavior, because it's super, super fun. And often it's very funny. So, if you have a bunch of humans around laughing and giggling, because it usually is very hilarious looking, it sort of eggs the dog on a little bit. So you need to prevent that from happening and rechannel the dog's energy back towards you.
For sure. And that was one of the big things that I wanted us to hammer down on for this after hours agility, because I know we have lots of young puppy owners and lots of super motivated people to do more with their dogs. It's really, really important that you have great listening skills, that you have good off-leash skills before you, even before you really, commit yourself to some agility training, because the dog may have a lot of opportunity to make bad choices, and you don't want to be having to train your obedience, retrain your response to name, retrain some of these things. You want to be able to focus on the agility. So it's like a dry land training for your sports athletes. You can do some of these obedience skills at home, and then when you get to the agility training ring, you can focus on it. So really, make sure that if your dog, and some dogs make mistakes, sometimes this environment is so stimulating that they start to make bad choices, and you can sort of flip that switch into obedience trainer mode. That's going to be the best for your dog, and it's also going to allow you to progress in agility a lot faster.
Absolutely. Now, we can get into retrieving, but I think we keep talking about response to name, and it's important that we talk about our expectation for that. So if I say my dog's name, I expect them to turn and look at me the first time that I say it, without me having to say it in a mean or nasty way. I want to just be able to say it happily and have the dog turn in and check in and respond to me. So when we're first starting this training, again, like everything else we do, we want to build a lot of value and positivity for the word that we're using. So I'm going to show you something that we do that is super, super simple. Anybody can do this. You can even have your kids do this with your dog. And this is basically what we call loading up a word. So I have a bunch of chicken wieners in my hands here, and I'm going to call B over. Come here, miss. Come here so people can see you. Put your paws up. Paws up. Paws up. Good. So she's here. I'm going to do this. B. Good girl. B. Good. B. Good. B. Good. So she thinks this is the best ever. Be good. Be good girl. Be good girl. So it looks really simple, but I'm actually being very specific about when I say her name versus when I give her the food. I'm saying her name first, and then I'm rewarding her 1 second later. So that way, if she's distracted, be. Aha, there she goes. She learns to come back and get rewarded right away, because she's had a lot of association with hearing her name and then being rewarded. If she's close enough and I call her and she's not paying attention to me, I might even just give her a little poke. I might say, B, give her a little touch. Hi, good girl. Focus her back on me, and then I can reward from there. If she's at a distance and I'm training this, and I would keep her on a leash, I would repeat her name and add a little tug on the leash to get her to look at me. See, it works really well with husbands as well. And then I would praise her when she comes back to me. But what I don't want to do is get into a bad habit where I call the name repetitively and I don't insist that she turns and responds. And again, you're not getting mean or angry or emotional when you're doing this. You want to do it very matter of fact, and you want to set your dog up to be successful. So if you're having a lot of opportunities or situations where you're saying the dog's name and you are not getting a response, that tells you that your dog doesn't know it very well. If the dogs have a lot of value for their name, very few dogs want to ignore their name. There's very few times where I say her name and she doesn't immediately just check in with me and do something, because she's had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of repetitions of hearing her name and then getting some treats, hearing her name and then maybe having me play with her or give her some affection or give her a little toy. So she wants me to say her name. That's something that she really looks forward to.
Yeah, and you've really set her up to know that every single time, with that loading of that word, every single time a reward's in it for her. So
and I never call her over and over again. So if she's a bit distracted and I call her and she's too busy sniffing or she's too busy ignoring me, I will walk right up to her and then I will say, B, and I'll give her a little touch. And when she turns, then I'll throw a party and basically say, look what you missed out on. I am so fun. That little gross thing that you're sniffing in the grass is boring. Over here's the party, and you're going to miss it if you don't come over here.
We've got some great questions in here. I'd like to go to, let's talk to from Shandy Blake.
Ah, my friend Shandy.
Yeah, my young dog's a quiet, focused worker, but when I reward with a tug, gets way over aroused. Outs nicely. Is there a good way to reward with a tug long enough to be reinforcing, but not so long they go Crazy.
It's a really good question.
Yeah, it is.
I think I would
count on Shandy to drop the good questions.
Yeah, she always has good questions. Shandy, I know exactly what you're talking about. I see a lot of dogs that do that. I would do a lot of repetitions where you do very short plays and then ask the dog to drop it immediately. And then you can also really throw the dog for a loop by not always having the dog drop it when you're holding the toy. So sometimes play, say out or drop whatever your word is, have the dog drop it while you're holding the toy. Other times, let go of the toy and tell their dog to drop it right away, because some dogs find even more value in the fact that you're holding the toy with them, and that makes them higher. When you let go of it and the toy sort of dangles and it's boring, when you say drop it, it's kind of like, oh, well, that's no fun anymore. And then they'll drop it a bit more quickly. So switch up between whether you're holding the toy or whether you just let the dog have the toy. But again, make sure if you ask the dog to drop it, that they don't just say, ooh, I have the toy to myself now, and they have a little party. They have to drop it right away. But I would just do shorter periods of play so that the dog cannot get ramped quite as much. Keep in mind, for some dogs, if they're that high on a toy, even looking at a toy is a reward. They don't even have to put their mouth on it to feel rewarded. So, don't be worried. They don't have to have this big, long play. But again, if you're practicing and your dog does something incredible and you want to use that as a way for them to sort of release their excitement, then use it sometimes. But you want to also be able to control it.
Yeah, that's great. Diana Geiger says, do you abide by the training that you give your dog all their meals, give their meals in an all-day reward fashion rather than all at once?
So hand feeding versus like feeding while you're training versus giving them meals. I do both. When I have a baby puppy, I do a ton of hand feeding. A lot of their food comes from me and I make them work for it. So we'll do trick training together. We'll teach response to names, sits downs, all those types of things. But I do switch it up. The other thing that I really like to do when I have a young dog with food is I feed them in their crate, because it's one of the best ways to build a lot of really great value for their crate. So I don't want to hand feed during that time. I'll have the puppy go in the crate. I'll put the food in their crate. I'll shut the door. It's very important you shut the door. A lot of people just let the dog go in and out. And so some meals they'll eat in their crate, and some meals they're going to eat by working for it, where we're doing something together. So you don't have to stick to one thing. I think it's good to do a little bit of both.
Eva Ortega says he's obedient when he knows I have food. And actually, I brought this one up because that's a timing thing.
Yep.
And Dan, I think if you search the art of luring on the channel, you might find the right one. But we have a video on the channel where we talk exclusively about your timing, and that's a pretty common thing for someone to have a dog if their timing's off a little bit and they're presenting the food early, or their dog before the cue for their dog is food. So if I bring out a treat. And Kayl loves popcorn. If I bring out popcorn and
love popcorn.
And then I say Kayl, the cue that she's responding to is that popcorn coming out. If I have popcorn on her nose.
Or if I pull out $100 and I ask Ken to do something for me, he typically will do whatever I ask.
But if she pulls out chocolate cookies, it's happening no matter what. So the point to be taken away here is that watch your timing.
Your dog.
Yeah, we don't want to bribe our dogs. We're using food in the case of luring. We're always leading with our voice, though. It's voice first, then lure, or voice first, then reward, or voice first, then fix. It's always voice first. And I want you to keep that in mind.
I thought you were gonna break out into a rap there for a second.
Voice first, then reward. Voice first. You know what? I can see something really good come from
We're
this.
much better singers than we are rappers.
I'm gonna open up the Mac and I'll create some beats. Maybe for the next After Hours Agility show, we're gonna have a rap song.
Okay. I want to tell you one more thing about the food. And that is a game that we call Jackpot. And this is a really great game for agility, for anything but agility. I really like this. So you leave a reward somewhere in the training facility that you're practicing, nearby, of course, and go and ask your dog to do 1 or 2 jumps. Just do a tiny little bit and then yell jackpot or whatever command you'd like to say, and then run back to that little reward station and have a little party. And this works really great for agility trials, because you could have your reward station be, at your crating area or at your car or wherever it is, and your dog will learn, I go out and I do things, and then when I hear that magic word, it means that we're going to run and we're going to play. So you don't necessarily have to have the reward physically on your body. You can start to transfer it to a different location.
For sure. What do you think about jumping into the next?
I want to talk a bit about retrieving, but I actually think I should use Hippie because she doesn't retrieve very well.
Yeah.
And you can watch me sweat, because B will retrieve all day long perfectly.
Sure.
Here,
and I'll just jump into the chat for a minute. I see Melinda Miller says, I overused my dog's name during a run, and I think I'm desensitizing her to it. So much to think about that I do without realizing. You're absolutely right. Yeah, for sure. In identifying it, I noticed Dan, the moderator man, sitting not 10 feet away from me, said, it's great that you are recognizing that. It's so important, because once you recognize it, you can stop yourself from doing it and set your dog up to train through it. You know, put a line on them, and then make sure that if they don't respond right away, you can help them to be successful. So I see Hippie Shake has come out here. Why don't we go? Let's do some training. Let's do some after hours agility. When you're ready, Kayl.
Okay, so this is going to be a bit of a challenge because she absolutely loves food. Where am I looking? Right there? Okay. She absolutely loves food. So I'm going to work through this. Now, I know that this Frisbee in my hand, she's like looking at a pile of toys right now, and she's really into it. Here, Hip. Here, hi. So, Hippie, come here. Come see everybody. So this is Hippie. She is a toy poodle. She's about 5 years old, and she does a bit of agility training, but not really that much anymore. She loves this Frisbee that's in my hand. She's never seen this pink thing before, but I'm going to try and use this and see if I can get her to tug and play with it, even though she's never done it before. So you can see some of the techniques that I'll use. I'm going to save the Frisbee, though, because I know she likes this, so I don't want to start with this. I'm going to start with something a bit harder, just for the sake of you learning. So this has a long string on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by having her chase after it. Now, I guess before I get into this, I should say why retrieving is so important. You know, for agility, you can exercise your dog, you can warm your dog up, but in agility, having the ability to reward your dog out on a course away from your body is essential for teaching your dog to do things independent of you. The other thing that's extremely important is I want to be able to reward my dog on the line or on the dog's path so that I am able to teach her to drive ahead of me and teach her to run with really good head placement. I do not want a dog running agility constantly looking at me. I need her to listen to me, but I don't want her to look at me unless I call her. Okay, what's this? So I'm going to move this around. Get it. So I'm going to move around. Get it. Ready, get set. Ready, get it. Yay! Yay, good girl. So when she picks it up, I'm going to praise her. Woo! What have you got? Give me that thing. Yes, good girl. Good, ready, get it. Yay! Yes, good. Ready, get it. Yo, she's killing it. She's killing it. She's killing it. Bring that thing here. Oh, good girl. Ready. Get it. Woohoo! Get it. Hit me. Come on, bring it here. Good girl. Yes. Good. Okay, now I'm going to pull it away. Okay, hop. Good girl, and I'm going to keep it exciting because if I do any more, she might start losing interest. So I could switch to another toy or I could switch to another behavior. That was fun. She sort of liked it. But again, I let her have a little bit of fun with it, and then I used my recall and my response to name to get her to bring the toy back. Again, all of those things I need to use in order to make this go a little bit more easily. And I'm going to tell you one of my biggest pet peeves with my dogs with retrieving, and that is if they don't bring the toy right back to my hand. I teach, again, a lot of seminars, as I mentioned at the beginning of the live stream. I also take a lot of classes and do things with my own dogs quite a bit. And if your dog spends half of your turn in a class or at a seminar running around the ring with a toy in their mouth, you waste a lot of time. The coach can't give you advice if you can't get your dog back. It also exhausts your dog, which means you're not going to be able to do as much productive training as you could if the dog brings the toy right back to you. So in order to train this, I will call her name and I'm going to run away from her. And if I am not certain the dog's going to bring the toy back, I would put the toy on a long line or a string so that she can't run away with it. But I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to help bring her nice and close to my body. So maybe throw the toy away from me, eh? What's that?
Yeah, might be
easier. Okay, ready? Mr. First, set, go. Get it. So let her go get the Frisbee. Bring it here. Come on. Oh, no. Get the Frisbee. Get it. Yay, get that thing. I'm going to get that thing. Ready, get set. Are you into the pink thing now? Set, get it. Yay, good girl. Come on. Bring. Yay, there we go. Ready?
Okay, break it down. Break that down.
Get it. Yay!
Good.
Bring it here. Woohoo!
Good. Break that down for a sec, because I think a lot happened there that people need to know about.
Get it. Okay, yay!
Yeah, that was really great. That was really great. I'm happy that that happened because you were.
I'm really surprised actually because I think I turned her so on to that pink toy that she was like, "Where did that pink toy go?" So what a lot of people do though in that moment is they get frustrated and then they give up. Basically, I got crazier just to get her a little bit more exciting. And what she didn't like is this toy. The frisbee fell flat, so she couldn't really pick it up very easily. And as soon as it was hard for her to do, she was like, I'm going to go back to that thing that was easier. So I went to the toy very quickly and I flipped it around and I moved it. And I don't know if you saw, but the last 2 times I throwed it, whoa, that was. I'm so tired from running around with my poodle that I can't speak English anymore.
Throwdown. She's thinking
right.
about the rap song that we're going to write.
I threw the toy so that it rolled horizontally like this, vertically, so that she could grab it a little bit more easily. The other thing is I wanted to keep it moving. A lot of dogs aren't as encouraged to grab a dead toy. So oh my God, I can't speak. A toy that is flat and not moving on the ground versus one that is rolling or moving. That's a little bit more fun. And then I added a lot of moving away and play. And I didn't make her tug for a long time. I basically grabbed the toy and I kept the toy moving. And you got to do it short and sweet. And if you're not exhausted by the end of your little play session, you are not into it as much as you need to be. You should be totally breathless at the end of a play session with your dog to make it exciting.
Yeah, and a couple things that happened that I thought were so important that are really helpful that we see other puppy owners and young dog owners do. Kayl made it easier for Hippie, so she got pretty close to her. But the moment Hippie, it's the words are hard. Once Hippie picked that toy up, Kayl started to move away. She encouraged her in. Kayl used her motion to bring Hippie, but she made it really easy for her to be successful. And I think what's so exciting about seeing Hippie Shake working through this is she's not a naturally toy motivated dog. We did a lot of work, and some of the videos are on the channel to build this drive. So when we say, if you have a relatively toy motivated dog, you can probably take your foot off the gas a little bit when you're teaching. You might not need to be so energetic and exciting. But if you have a dog who doesn't really like toys, these steps are going to work for you. You just need to be consistent, and you need to be able to break it down a little bit so that your dog can be successful and really see the value in the toy.
And creating a monster.
Yeah, but this is a great opportunity. So Kayl can reward Hippie by playing these little. It's hard to see her, I guess, but. She can reward Hippie by giving her this toy, letting her win. Hippie's had this opportunity to give that toy a death shake, but it's Hippie's. So if this were a dog who were absolutely furiously crazy about toys, we wouldn't allow that sort of thing to happen as much.
Yeah, we wouldn't let them win.
Yeah, you don't let your dog win.
And when you do let them win, if they don't have a good, reliable recall or response to name, you wouldn't be ever doing this off of a leash. Now, Hippie has a reliable recall and a reliable response to name because she's had a lot of obedience training, so I don't have a leash on her. But if I thought for even a moment that she might take the toy and run away from me and try to play with it by herself, I would not have her or the toy on off a leash. I would have them both on some type of line or something, so that if the dog decided to go and play a catch me if you can game, they would not be successful because I would have control with a long line on the dog.
Okay, let's and to end this, Kayl will just take the toy away from Hippie. We're not going to let her hang out with it. We want to end with her really motivated to get that toy. So we're gonna make it really fun for her.
I like to make them really crazy. So I'll tease her a little bit. Oh, I got it. You can't have it. And then I'll throw it up on the table.
Oh, and she can almost get it.
I missed.
Okay, let's jump into the chat for a moment and see what you guys are saying. Okay, so
Hippie Shaker, so cute. She hates to be hugged and snuggled, so I force her.
Okay. Yeah, Hippie's very squeaky.
She's grunting.
Okay, Emma Danahy. You can take Emma's comment.
You're so cute.
Emma says, during training, my dog does great with listening, and as soon as we've done training, I put her in the yard. Then it'll be only 5 minutes after, and I call her to come inside, and she doesn't listen. Okay, so it's really great, and this is not something that's completely atypical. Why don't you talk about that? How she's setting her dog up to make the mistake after an hour or a lesson of brilliant responses, it sounds like.
Yeah, so it sounds like your dog's understanding a bit of situational learning. And if you know that this is possible to happen, then you need to break the cycle. So the next time you let your dog out in the yard after you've had a training session, put a long leash or line on them, and let them drag it around when they're outside, so that when you go to call your dog in and you do not get an immediate response, you're going to not chase the dog, but you're going to go to the end of that long leash or line that's attached. And by long, I'm talking like 25 feet, like really long, so that if your dog tries to run, you don't have to try and chase the dog down. And then you can give the dog a little tug on the line. And when they sort of look at you after you give them the tug, you need to make it really fun for your dog to come to you. You can make some funny noises. You could shake a toy around. You could do something that's going to attract your dog. But in that moment, try not to continually repeat their name or your recall command. Because what we don't want to do is have the dog hear those commands and then not have a ignore you.
Yeah, learn that they don't have to respond.
Not ignore you.
Yes.
We don't want them to ignore you.
Right. Not ignore you.
Yes.
No double negatives.
So I would just sort of, it sounds like you actually have the most perfect situation to set the dog up to work through this, because you kind of have an idea of when it's going to happen. And I think that's actually pretty lucky, because a lot of people don't necessarily know when it's going to happen. So use that to your advantage.
And we talk about consistency a lot. And you may find that, that those listening skills before, when you're doing agility start to, get a little bit, they aren't as sharp, because your dog is rehearsing after agility, not paying attention. So we need to be really consistent. So if you aren't having success, make sure you follow up. Chell Bell 5146 says, hi guys, Wei being from Gold Coast, Australia, love watching your lessons. I have a 14-month-old Rottie male who's so eager to learn and loves to play. He's helped us so much. Thank you. Oh, that was really nice. I didn't expect that to be, I thought that was a question, but thank you very much, Shelbel. We appreciate you checking us out here in the After Hours Agility Show. Pam Sims says she's 13 weeks old, and when she's wound up, she's crazy, excited, runs like she is on an agility course, but she doesn't stop until she's exhausted. I'm afraid she'll get too excited. And we see a lot of people that sometimes, overtrain their dogs, like run them into the ground so that the dogs are too tired. There is a balance. So one of the really cool things I like about agility is there's a balance between having a really fast, motivated dog and the precision, like the technical ability for the dog to do some of the obstacles. So I think you need to find that balance. At this point, when you're not asking your dog to do all sorts of really complicated stuff, it's not a big deal, but you need to make sure you have that solid response to name, that solid recall. You can maybe ask, we did in our
a subtle command.
Yeah, in our mystery box
helpful.
workshop, maybe 2 months ago, I think we did like a down, like a moving down. So maybe that's a good opportunity. You can check out our workshop, our free workshop, and you can teach your dog a remote down, which would be super helpful. It sounds like in that situation. Let's see. Okay, what else do we have?
We got one more that we were going to talk about.
One more skill?
Yep.
More skills to pay the bills?
Yep. We were going to talk about the command leave it.
Right. That's going to be a really helpful one, I think, for these guys.
So the command leave it is something that we teach our dogs often, if we can, at a very young age, because it allows you to control their decision making around distractions. And when we say the command leave it, we expect our dogs to turn and move away when we say it. And then redirect their attention back to us. And obviously this is super helpful for when you have your dog outside in the backyard, or you take your dog for a walk, or whatever it might be. But, in agility, there's a lot of distractions that are around the ring. There's often people nearby making noises, eating food. There's all kinds of things that go on. And a lot of dogs can decide during their work that they're just going to leave that and go and get distracted by those items. So we want to make sure that our dogs will leave things on command. So we teach them a leave it command right from the beginning. And again, just like everything else that we do, we set them up to be successful so they learn how to do it. It would be amazing if you could stall for a second, because I really do need a leash for this one. And I think I know where one might be.
Okay, for sure. Absolutely. So let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat. So Pam mentioned sometimes my 13-week mini Aussie out to play, she gets so wound up that she's running like she's on the agility course. Yeah, I think we may have covered that one. I see Melinda Miller. Send that over. When do you teach running contacts? My instinct says I should stick with stopped contacts for her first year of competing and just focus on control and clean runs, but just guessing. Now, this is something that Kayl and I have talked about quite a lot. And when Kayl gets back over here, I think there's one in the truck that I brought. This is something that Kayl and I have talked about a lot. And certainly some dogs are going to be the running contact is the best option for them. For dogs that, you might be struggling with a little bit of control, sometimes the stopped contact, what's so great about the stopped contact is how clear your criteria is and how obvious your expectations are. It makes it a little bit easier for you to teach your dog because you can be much more specific. I think we're going to dive into that after we work on this leave it. We're going to dive into that comment. Should I teach running after I've taught stopped contacts? But let's get to the leave it.
Debate.
Yeah, so let's get to the leave it, and we can chat a little bit more about that because this is something that we actually talk about a fair amount in some of our agility classes.
It's pretty crazy that it took us that long to find a leash in a dog training facility.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's what I need to do. Oh, I have a bunch of toys off camera here. I'm going to throw on camera. Okay, I'm going to come a little closer so you can see me. Now I have a couple containers of food. I have a whole bunch of toys. This is going to be really fun, especially since I have the little pink toy here that you've been playing with. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start to train her what the command leave it means. Now, in my hand, I have some chicken wieners, so I have much higher value, in her opinion, rewards than what is on the floor. Oh, she's very excited to do this. So when I move towards the toys and she starts to look at it, I'm going to tell her, leave it, and I'm going to put the food directly on her nose, and I'm going to lure her attention away so that she hears the word, and then she's being shown the reward 1 second later. And a while ago, somebody asked a question about my dog only listens when I have food, and we talked about the importance of saying the word and then being shown the food afterwards. That particular process is extremely important right now. Okay, there's a lot of sneezing going on in this room right now between the dog and Dan. This is great. Okay, so I'm going to let her sort of check this stuff out. What's that? What's that? Leave it. Yes, good girl. So I said leave it, and then I lured her attention away. I'm going to try it again. Okay, check that stuff out. What's there? What's there? Leave it. Yes, good girl. So again, I can say leave it and then move it away. Now, when you're doing this with a brand new dog, I would repeat that many times, and you might not get so close to the toy. So she really likes the treats in my hand. So as you can see when I'm getting close, she's kind of ready for this exercise to happen because I've demonstrated this with her before. She remembers what she's doing. You'll find this happens with your dog once you've done the exercise a bunch of times. But if you're working with a dog that's not so focused, then you might do your leave it back here from the toys. Don't go quite so close. Find a distance that allows you to be successful. Now, this is what I'm looking for to happen. So without showing her the food, I want to be able to walk up to these distractions. I missed my chance because I was talking. That's good. Leave it. Yes, good girl. And I want to be able to walk her right up here, girl. Here, sit. Yes, down. Good. Sit. Yes. So even if she's right near those toys, okay. Leave that. Sit. Good. Back up. Good. Sit. Down. Good. Okay. Yes. Good girl. I want to make sure that she's focusing on me rather than what's in front of her. So that leave it's going to be really important. Well done there, girl. Okay.
I wonder if you'd be able to get her to go to food so you can just show how you guide her away on the leash.
If there's food here?
Yeah.
Yeah, she might do that. Okay, so there's some chicken wieners there. I think she knows the setup, but we're going to try. Check it out. Look at there's food. Look. Okay. Leave it. Yes, good girl. Now, did you see I delayed my yes because she hadn't quite made the decision to move with me? She thought she might go back and grab one more little chicken wiener there. Okay, go see. Go see. Check it out. Check it out. Leave it. Leave it. Yes, good girl. That was very slow, you little lady. So you can make the distractions a little bit more challenging. She's obviously, leave it. Yes, good girl. She's obviously ready to work something a little bit more challenging. That was a good one, miss. Okay, good girl. But again, I expect her to turn and respond to me the very first time I ask. I don't want her to, continue to self-reward herself on whatever she's looking at for several moments before responding. Leave it. Yes, good girl. But I find we use that a lot with our dogs.
Shandy Blake asks, best tips for a young dog's first seminar. We have one coming up in approximately 3 weeks with Soshana Doss. Best tips for a young dog's first seminar. How would you prepare for a young dog's first seminar?
It's hard to say because I think it just depends what the seminar is about. I think that I wouldn't overdo it with the puppy. I think I would try to go in knowing what the puppy's strengths and weaknesses are, and then set the puppy up to do things, very well, because you don't want them to learn in that scenario that they should act a certain way. So I think I would try to set the puppy up for success. I don't know. I think it's hard to say. I think it depends on what you're working on.
For sure. Let's take a step back. Melinda Miller asks a question, and this is something that you and I chat about occasionally. Melinda says, when do you teach running contacts? My instinct says I should stick with stopped contacts for her first year of competing and just focus on control and clean runs, but I'm just guessing.
I think it has everything to do with your ability as a dog trainer, and your experience as an agility handler, and whether running contacts is a good choice for you and your dog as a handling team. Running contacts are very fast. They're super competitive. There's a lot of benefits to them for sure, but they are extremely difficult to train if you don't know exactly what you're doing. So I think that's the first thing that I would say. You need to have a very good eye. You need to have good timing. You need to be a good dog trainer. And if you have all of those things, and for me, I'm a good dog trainer, I have a good eye, I would teach running contacts right from the beginning. I would not teach stop and then change over. And now Beeline has both running contacts and stop contacts on the dog walk, and I trained both at the exact same time. So while she was learning the run, she was also learning a stop. On the A-frame, she only has a running contact, and on the teeter-totter, she only has a stop contact. So it's a little bit confusing, I suppose, to speak about, but for her, it makes perfect sense because I've trained all of them sort of together, and my criteria for each behavior that I'm asking has been very, very specific. And it's taken me a long time to get a really good eye. So if you're not a super experienced handler, if you're not a fast runner, if you don't have a great eye with dog training, I would stay away from running contacts. I would stick to stop contacts because they're hard enough to begin with.
Yeah.
And I would wait until you're a little bit more experienced. It's hard to answer the question since I don't really know you and your dog, but that would be my advice.
How much would there be like a rule of thumb for a dog in terms of their speed, or in terms of their motivation level?
If you have a dog that sort of lacks motivation and isn't like a natural jumpy type of dog, like some dogs are really bouncy and they're much harder to teach running contacts to. If you have a dog that's lacking motivation, sometimes going to the bottom of a contact and stopping isn't really the most exciting thing in the entire world. If you have like a really fast motivated border collie though, or other breed that's really quite quick, sometimes running contacts can be a bit more of a challenge to train.
For sure. Let's see. I like this one from Evelyn Veronica.
Good girl.
She says, I have a 1-year-old Labrador. She's super fast. Is she too old now to start agility?
No.
Absolutely not.
Not at all. In fact, the fact that she is 1-year-old is probably great because that means that she's, almost done growing, and it's going to be a lot less impact on her body. I do start my agility training very young with my dogs, but I wouldn't even call it agility training. It's like they're hardly even doing agility. They're working on foundation exercises. I don't do a lot of crazy agility training until my dog's over a year old. I don't even start my weave pull training, nothing. So you are not behind the game at all. It's a good idea to take the first year to develop a bond and a relationship and focus with your dog, and then you can get into the agility afterwards. So yeah, not a problem at all.
Yeah, so maybe this is a good time to mention just a couple of things flat work you might do. Like, I know this episode, Evelyn, if you've just jumped into the live stream, or if you've just started watching as we got to the end, all of the exercises today are exactly what you want to be working on to sort of make your way into agility with great skills, great handling, consistent, reliable responses from your dog. But maybe in a future live stream, one of these after hours agility, we can talk about some things that you can set up to work on, like skills specifically.
How to train things at home.
Yeah, specifically for at home. But watch this episode again. Make sure you've nailed down all of the skills that we talk about in today's episode. And at that point, I think you'll be more than ready to start working on some more agility skills where your dog has a little bit more opportunity to make mistakes. As long as they're controlled, they won't be so bad. So Chris Eubanks, what is your opinion on the age for a dog to start jumps with them?
Well, when I have young dogs, so what I would consider young would be, under 7 to 8 months old. They're hardly jumping at all, if not at all. They might, and it depends. This is a hard question to answer because it depends on the breed that you're training. It depends on the dog's weight and fitness. It depends on the size of your dog because the answers will differ based on that. But jumping is not really a great idea to do with dogs until they are fit and old enough to be able to have that type of impact on their body. There's lots and lots of things that you can train your dog to do without actually jumping them. The thing that's troublesome is that people say, well, my dog can jump. There's no problem with it. But then when your dog is 10, 11, 12 years old, you're going to kick yourself because you're going to see you have a dog that's sore and arthritic and that type of thing. We don't notice what we do to our dogs when they're babies because they're resilient and they think they can do anything. And then we sort of allow that to happen. So it's sort of hard to give the answer, but I would, if you do have a young dog, I would focus on developing their body, building strength and muscle, building coordination before I worry about putting the jumps up.
And you can always go to your vet. What you really want to be aware of is your dog's epiphyseal plates or their growth plates at the end of their long bones. And the only definitive way to know for sure that your dog is done growing is by going to your vet and asking them. So that might be the first step. Maybe you go to your vet and say, like, where do we stand? How much more strenuous activity can I get into with my dog? But it's really hard to give you a rule of thumb because
I can give you an example of what I did with Beeline and Hippie, I guess. So Beeline is about 23 pounds. She's about 16 inches tall. So she's a very light dog. She in competition is supposed to jump 16 inches tall. And I probably didn't start jumping her at like maybe 6 or 8 inches until she was, I don't know, 7 or 8 months old, maybe. I kept it very low, and then for quite a long time, she was jumping about 10 inches. She was learning a lot of her exercises, and I don't think I bumped her up to full height until she was a little bit over a year old. I think I've maybe about 13, 14 months. I wasn't jumping her at full height. You can compete with a dog when they're a year and a half, although you don't have to. You can wait longer, but that sort of gives you an idea. But when I started jumping her at full height, she was extremely fit. So there's not an ounce of fat on that dog. She is extremely muscled. I did a ton of body awareness exercises. She was very, coordinated and aware of her body. So by the time I was asking her to do more acrobatic things, she was very prepared for it. Hippie weighs about 6 pounds. She only has to jump 8 inches. And because I was working a lot of motivation and speed, she jumped 4 inches probably until she was year and a half, 2. I didn't even put her up to full height because I wanted her to learn to jump really flat and fast, and it wasn't until she was probably 2 that I put her up to the height that she's supposed to jump. So.
And before we even get to that point, we want to make sure that you have those great listening skills with your dog. That was the focus of today's episode. And if you have any things that you'd like us to do, especially for after hours agility trainings, let us know. Let us know in the comments. Let us know on the other videos. If this is your first time on the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We publish new videos every single week to help you to have a well-behaved four-legged family member. And if you were here at the top of the show, you'll know that Dan, the moderator man, is here. He's actually moderating like 10 feet away. So why don't you come on over here, Dan, just for a second. Head on over just on this side. And
what are you doing?
I want to thank you guys for watching. Tons of great questions, lots and lots of fun. I think this is a really fun episode. I like doing these, sort of breaking up the train station and doing some agility things. Dan, I want to thank you for moderating. Usually I'm saying it to you here. Saying it to him right there. On that note, I want to wish you guys happy training. My name's Ken.
Kayl.
I'm Dan.
Bye for now, guys.